Some teams just don't want to wait until Saturday to square off. So last night, some Friday night fever action in the sport. Let's go first to Colorado at Houston. Deion turning to Ryan Staub as a starting quarterback after throwing 2 touchdowns in Colorado's Week 2 win. Houston looking to start 3-0 for the first time since 2016. Let's go to the second quarter here. Colorado down 16-7. Staub takes it himself, going to the end zone. He's going to dive and flip on in, loses the ball, but don't worry. That's a touchdown. Colorado down just 16-14 at the half, putting his body on the line early in this one, getting that helmet fixed. Late in the third quarter, Houston up 5. Dean Connors gets the ball, looks to throw, but takes off himself, diving towards the pylon. It's initially called a touchdown, but we got to take a look. Knee is down. He was marked short on the 1-yard line. But don't worry, just give it to the QB for the sneak. Connor Wigman sneaking it in for the touchdown. Houston up 26-14. Wigman's feeling himself, and he is not done. Fourth quarter, QB draw, making a man miss, runs it in for the 7-yard score. Wigman finished with 305 total yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Former 5-star really looking like it. Houston starting 3-0 for the first time since 2016, but that is Colorado's worst 3-game start in the Deion Sanders era. College football scoreboard from last night. Indiana having a nice afternoon, 73-0 over in-state Indiana State. Also, we're going to talk about that New Mexico UCLA score, an 0-3 start for the Bruins. But let's start with Deion Sanders. I said that it was the worst 3-game start with him as the head coach. We wondered what this year could be like without the Heisman Trophy winner and Travis Hunter, without his sons on the team. But Danny, is this better, worse, or exactly what you thought we were going to see from Colorado?
I think it's probably what I thought. As far as I think it's going to be a rebuild, but what I did not expect was for him to play 3 quarterbacks already. I mean, he brought 2 to Big 12 Media Days, and they weren't the ones that started last night in Martin Luther Staub, who's one of the greatest nicknames out there, which Coach Prime gave to him. But here's the thing I think is very unique. Coach Prime has never coached anybody except his son at quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. So in high school he coached him, at Jackson State he coached him, and in Colorado he coached him. So he's never had to deal with quarterbacks before. And I think you have to be careful that you're not ruining all of their confidence by having such a quick hook with the first 2 in the first game, then going to Ryan Staub. We'll see what the reaction is after he had 2 interceptions last night. But if you have a revolving door at quarterback, it's going to potentially ruin the season for them. And I also wonder what it means in that locker room, not to mention what it means for the transfer portal implications, because Julian Lewis was a 5-star who was a big recruit for him, who I'm sure thought he was going to be the first guy off the bench, which he was last week. And now they go to the 3rd stringer who's already been there. Caden Salter was probably thinking he was going to be the starter, and they're sitting there. I think it's just a dynamic that Coach Prime is going to have to manage very delicately, or else you could lose the season even worse than we thought it could be.
Well, Juju Lewis initially flipped his commitment from USC, so he was looking elsewhere. And like you said, that's something you have to take into consideration.
I mean, he was handed the keys by Shedeur.
Literally.
I mean, was he
Literally
not? I mean, it was on Instagram. They did the photo shoot
on the
and everything. Hold on, what do you do? What Shedeur do? Something like this? Something like that.
That's a nice timepiece you got.
I got it from Walgreens. They took me to the back room. I learned something from you. But listen, here I want to agree with Danny on a serious note about this is exactly what I expected from Colorado. Why? Because Colorado played superhero football last year. They relied on Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders to get them out of every situation they were in, whether it was offensively, whether it was defensively, even on special teams. They relied on those 2 guys to save every moment for them. And whenever you don't have those 2 guys, then we see the leaks and the creaks in the foundation, the fact that you can't run the ball still, the fact that you still can't stop the run, and the fact that you can't protect your quarterback. Listen, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is going to be. You cannot move forward if your quarterback is consistently on his back, under pressure, running out of the back of the pocket. There were times where I saw Staub catch the snap last night and then just start rolling out of the pocket because he expected the pressure. And it wasn't because they were blitzing or because they were sending this defensive front or this scheme that was reinventing the wheel, but it was because he knew the guys up front weren't stout enough to protect him. So he had to navigate and try to find ways to throw the football. So those are the fundamental problems for Colorado that will continue.
And to your point, those problems surfaced the last 2 years, but they had a legit pro that covered up a lot of things in Shedeur Sanders. I guess for me, the most confusing part about this is what was the coaching staff offensively doing the entire spring session to be able to understand who is the best option for us at the quarterback position. I, for one, did not expect this. I felt like when you brought in a veteran presence like Deion Sanders, who's played some really good football and against lesser competition, but yet and still he had the experience, I felt like he would jump into the saddle if he won the job, and they would be able to sustain some type of success. But to your point, the offensive line hasn't gotten any better. No. And now you don't have a legit potential pro at the quarterback position that can cover up some things. But to Danny's point, you have to exercise patience. I felt like he removed Salters too soon from the starting lineup. Week 1, you played against Georgia Tech, a very, very good competitive team. Your offense didn't look good, but it wasn't solely because of the quarterback. Exercise patience to allow him to get his rhythm, because this is a new scheme that he has to learn, get acclimated to, and you pull the seat from him. Now where do you go? Because clearly what we saw last night is not the same option you want to utilize next week at the quarterback position. I mean, next week they got Wyoming. You got to win that ball game. Outside of Wyoming, BYU, TCU, Iowa State, and Utah. So you got to win the games you're supposed to win if you want to have a competitive, successful season.
So real quick, how much of the blame do you put on Coach Prime?
I mean, he's the head coach. He said with the media, I have a plan. And yet the plan looks like a disaster early. And I would suggest the plan be to find one guy and stick with him, let him play his way through it. But something you said, this team was dead last in the country in rushing last year. But they had Shador to bail him out. They don't have him anymore. I saw Marshall Faulk, their new running back coach, multiple times this offseason. He said, we're going to look completely different. We're going to be committed to the run. They haven't done that. So Pat Shermer, the offensive coordinator, they need to have some sort of soul-searching conversations to find out which quarterback gives them the best chance to run the football. That's what Caden Salter brings to the table. He's more of a running threat. So whatever it is, they've got to figure out how to get more physical at the point of attack, because if they're too one-dimensional like they were last night, it could be a really long season for the Buffs.
Can I make a point? And I want to bounce off of both of you two. The point that you made about what were the coaches doing in the offseason, I want to look at this. You mentioned Marshall Faulk, right? You've got Warren Sapp. You've got Pat Shermer. You've got Deion Sanders. I mean, the plethora of experience, whether it's playing, whether it's coaching, whether it's analyzing, whether it's coordinating, there should not be these problems. Like, again, you want to talk about the fact that Colorado can't stop the run. Warren Sapp, what's going on? What are you there for, essentially, if with all the experience that you have, the player that you were, what you're supposed to bring to this team, you're not bringing the mentality to the defensive line? Same with Marshall Faulk and the running backs. And the list goes on and on. Pat Shermer throughout the offense. Call it whoever you want. But at the end of the day, what have they been doing all this time with all that experience?
The only thing I wonder, though, is Warren Sapp can't go out there and play. Yeah. Marshall Faulk can't go out there and play. I worry a little bit about their personnel, because they've been very portal heavy, as a lot of teams have. And to ask them all to come together in continuity and to go out there and execute, I think that's a big task. Why I think any team, and I would put Florida State in this category because they've been a very portal-heavy team, I just think it's a more volatile environment where sometimes if it clicks, like last year, you could have a great season. But if it doesn't, you worry about chemistry in the locker room, and I think it can make for a very bumpy ride.
Yeah, and speaking of the portal and how it can be volatile,